Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. Welcome, everyone. We are off-site for good reason. We're going to take a tour after our meeting. We're very excited about that. So we'll run through this as quickly as we can. The first item of business is a proclamation. We have a member leaving us. This member has been here quite a bit longer than myself, and I'm looking around, and everyone else at the table. Maybe Sue is a rival of this. But Tony DiPuccio is leading our ranks. And so we want to thank you for your many, many years of service. I don't want to date you too much. But I mean, no offense, but I do have a proclamation. So I'm going to go ahead and read this and then hand it over to you. I don't know if we need to make it overly formal, but we did want to recognize the work. So this is a proclamation for Tony DiPuccio. It's been signed by all 3 county commissioners. And it reads, whereas Mr. Tony DiPuccio has served the citizens of Hamilton County for, it says, several years. As the waste generator representative, most recently serving several terms since June of 2018. And whereas Mr. DiPuccio has displayed leadership by chairing the Solid Waste Rules Committee, the Anaerobic Digestion Working Group, and many other committees over the years. And whereas Mr. DiPuccio also served as the chair of the policy committee during a transition between commissioners. And whereas Mr. DiPuccio consistently brought a business-focused perspective to the committee. And whereas Mr. DiPuccio has more than 40 years of solid waste experience, includes a deep understanding of solid waste rules and regulations in Ohio, as well as input on solid waste district formation and programs. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners recognizes the leadership and impact Tony DiPuccio has had on our community, and considering the end of his service on the Solid Waste Policy Committee, we proclaim this, the 15th day of May, 2024, as Tony DiPuccio Day in all of Hamilton County.
I'll make it brief. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. The proclamation from the county commissioners, and it's always, I always learn a lot serving on this board and hearing the different points of view. So it's not all one way at all. So again, thank you very much. And, I'm sure you'll carry on with my presence just fine. Got a lot ahead of you, so that's I'm sure it'll be an interesting next few years. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. All right, and we will do our round robin. And if you have a comment for Tony, please feel free to add it as we go around the room. So Greg, we're going to start with you.
Just simply, it's been fun working with you, and I wish you luck as you go in the next chapter.
The colleagues have been since 92nd meeting, so I'm a puppet member, and just wish you lots of favor and lots of fun stuff. I'll enjoy more time.
Nothing can be as much fun as this.
Who doesn't want to talk about solid waste?
Okay.
Matt Waller, Township Representative, Torring Township. Yeah, it's just been, I guess, a small window, but I appreciate everything you've done, and you've educated me with your questions and your kind of your business angle on things. Whenever you have a question, it always leads me to constantly looking things up, and that's a good thing.
Donald Peebles, General Member Interest, and I learned from everybody in here, but like he said, there's times when you say stuff, I'm over here typing it in my phone for later, so I learned something. So thanks for everything, and thanks for letting me be a sponge. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being awesome.
And I'm Sue Magnus with the city of Cincinnati. And yeah, Tony, thank you for all your years of service. I remember you were on the policy board when I was a staff member for the solid waste district. So it's been many. So it's been, so you've been one of those exemplary community servants who keep coming back and doing your part. So thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm Michelle Baltz, Hamilton County Resource Solid Waste Manager, and I wrote Tony a note, but I really do appreciate your leadership, Tony, and especially through COVID, your and the transition with passing of Top Cartoon. It really, your leadership on the committee made it my transition into my position so much easier. So I really appreciate it.
Good, thank you.
Brad?
Brad Johnson, Director of Hamilton County Environmental Services, and I'll just thank you for your public service, Tony, and say happy Tony DiPuccio Day.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
All right, let's go around the room and get everybody else in the loop here. We'll go around robin.
Kevin Ty, I'm Commissioner Dreehouse's Chief of Staff.
I'm Shannon Carr and I'm with Isaiah 55 Incorporated. I'm Vita Coleman, I'm with Isaiah 55.
Okay.
Bob Gebbert, Citizen Advocate.
Welcome back.
Tom Gerciano with Rumpke.
Keith Long, with the prosecutor's office. Tony, we've been together for a long time.
As you remind me.
So thank you for really all your leadership.
Thank you.
Major McMyer, Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office. Good luck.
All right, thank you. Thank you again, Tony. All right, we'll move on to our second item of business, which is the approval of the minutes from the February 21st meeting.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, anybody have any discussion?
I'll just point out that I'm going to abstain because I was not at that meeting.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Disapprove? Abstentions?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we move into public comments. Is there anybody here for public comment? Anybody online?
No.
All right, moving on. Our resource revenue updates and analysis is the attachment B in your packet. So Michelle, I'm going to turn to you.
Sure, and we only have 3 months, so that for what it's worth, I will point out the second page, the 2024 page, has a mistake at the top. It says 2023, but if you look to the left, that column says 24. So sorry, I didn't catch that. But the in-district tonnage is up about 1.5%. The out-of-district tonnage is down about 3.5%. The out-of-state tonnage is down 4.4%. So overall, that's about a 2% decrease or about $19,000 decrease in revenue. So, for the first 3 months of the year.
All right, are there any questions related to this item? Okay, thank you, Michelle. Now we're going to go on to the policy items for discussion. The first of those being the Hamilton County residency requirements. Michelle, why don't you frame this for us?
Sure. So we have Ohio Revised Code sets out very clearly what the 7 members of the policy committee are to be, and you know how they where they come from. 4 of those members are statutory members who are appointed by the bodies that they represent. For example, Stu represents the largest municipality, the city of Cincinnati. Greg represents Hamilton County Public Health as the largest health district. And then 3 of the members are voted in by those other 4 members. So we have the general interest member, the public member, and the waste generator representative. And so we have had in the past, we've had questions of whether those 3 members that are voted in should be required to live in Hamilton County, or if we would accept members from outside. So I did reach out to Ohio EPA and they said it is not required by them that those members be, it's really a policy to be set by the policy committee of whether you would want that or not. I also reached out to my colleagues throughout the state and to see what they do, and it was very mixed. Some Cuyahoga County allows, especially the general interest member who's representing a business in Hamilton County, to reside outside of their county. So it really just, it's really up to the policy committee. So I'm just putting it out there as something for you to discuss and decide if you want to decide whether those 3 members or just the generator representative would be allowed to live outside of the county or not. And then that will make a clearer policy moving forward from the next time we've got applications.
Okay, so this is an item for discussion. I think administration or the staff is looking for some direction from the board. And so I will weigh in, not knowing where anybody else sits on this issue. We have a lot of boards and commissions that we appoint to as county commissioners. And I am of the opinion that we should have people from Hamilton County serving on the Hamilton County boards. We have 830,000 people in the county, unlike some other counties that have a lower population, not as many people to choose from. I feel like we've had so many people that are interested in participating as volunteers in a number of different ways that I feel like it would be a disservice not to choose somebody that lives in the county. So that's my personal perspective, but I'm certainly open to other perspectives as we have this conversation. So whoever else would like to chime in, we welcome it.
So I'm kind of the same mindset, other than I think that if we ran into a problem trying to find somebody specifically for the generator spot, that would be one where I would be a little bit more lenient on if the generator itself is in the county, even if that person working for the generator does not live in the county. But that's really the only exception.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, when you, asked the other, when you surveyed the other policy committees, were there examples of one-offs, like the generator only was, so that does exist?
Yeah, the generator is across the state, the waste generator is the hardest one because you're usually asking someone from a large business to volunteer their time and it's harder to get someone. So that was the most common one. I do believe that there were a few that allowed other, so for example, say Greg didn't live outside of the
Right.
didn't live inside the county, but he could still be, I think. So there are examples of other positions from other policy, but then there were a few that said absolutely not, they have to be Hamilton County, so it was mixed.
So that the statutory members are in place because the nature of their positions, so that feels very different to me. As opposed to the others that we select, that we've got some.
So I think it might be not an exact analogy, but, I think it's been years now since law directors in cities and townships had to live in the city and township. And we ran into the problem that you may not have a lawyer that's interested in running for that, and that's when it was expanded to allow people outside. The only position in here that I have any kind of flexibility with outside the county would be the waste generator, just because I think but I think they have to be located, headquartered in Hamilton County. To me, we're giving the spot to the generator, and this is a representative of the generator more than the person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Matt, just you said headquartered here, but
Not headquartered,
they
but
have a significant presence.
significant presence. And again, significant presence is, that's vague too. I get that, but I think it's when the Supreme Court talked about, the free speech, I know it when I see it. I know a significant presence when I see it. I can't quantify it for you now, but I know it when I see it.
I agree with Commissioner Dreehouse. I think with the exception of the waste generator, and maybe there obviously would be a preference for that waste generator. The waste generator representative would back off from it being absolutely.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of see it again, more like if we can't find somebody from Hamilton County to fill that spot, we could kind of broaden that.
And I agree, I have a preference for the person to live and work in Hamilton County. But in this particular case, I asked Michelle to kind of look into it because I wanted to interview the person from GE. So I said, is it really a requirement or is it just a policy? And so she got back with me and said, yeah, it is a policy. And we had remembered that and years ago, we had appointed Gwen, who was the environmental manager for Forest Park, as the public interest, or was he general?
I think it was
General interest. But he actually lived outside of Hamilton County, but he had decades of experience. And so they made the exception before. But I think if we are going to make the exception, I think we would need to open it up again, because I know qualified people who did not apply because of the residency requirement. And we went through that with the last round. We had several people who wanted to apply, but just didn't because we said you can't.
And what kind of point of information, it wouldn't be a policy change, it would be a recommendation to the commissioners for a change, or can we change it?
We changed it. So
Okay.
do we have a policy in place right now that says you have to be a Hamilton County resident?
No, we've just
We
been
don't.
following the
Yeah.
Hamilton County
It's just-
Commissioners recommendation that they do.
Okay.
And that's just been the guidance from Nifong for
Yeah.
2 decades.
So it's not written, it's just by practice.
I have one question, is, so on this policy issues, is something just the board statutory members should vote on, or is it the entire?
Let me follow up on Sue's question here. Have there been applicants that in the past, not even this round, but in the past, that we've said we've turned away because they've not been?
Yes.
Okay. So I think your point is very.
Yeah.
Cogent with the idea that if we've said no before.
Yeah.
I think that I think to be faithful to a transparent process, we probably have to redo.
Well, tell me if I'm wrong. I hear the board saying there's a preference for somebody that lives in the county. If we can't find someone that lives in the county that is applied, then we would make an exception for waste generator, whatever other position it would be, likely waste generator. And we have a process that's open to people that live outside. Is that what you were saying?
That's right.
Okay, Michelle, that's where we've landed.
Well, let me just make sure I understand. You said if we couldn't find one.
If no one applies, if we have applicant, and there's no qualified applicant that lives in the county that is, for the waste generator position, for instance, then we would open up the process. And as you say, go back out.
Yeah.
And open it up to people that don't live in.
So if we have, for example, 15 applicants and I don't know, the 16th is from not out of the county and the 16th by far. We don't have to go through.
Right, so could we just list it, preferred Hamilton County
Yes.
resident, but it's not, you don't have to be a Hamilton County resident, and then the committee who's reviewing it, they would choose the Hamilton County residents first, but if we only got one applicant who's outside of the county, then they could go ahead and interview that applicant.
Yeah, and it's something if by some weird coincidence, out of all those 15 people who were
Right.
county residents, you just got people who had no idea what was going on or what have you, then we still have the ability to offer that, or to appoint that 16th person.
Are you clear?
Yes, that's great guidance, thank you.
Do we need a motion?
That would be great.
I think we do. I think it would be nice to have a motion. You wanna?
I don't know.
Okay, I make the motion that all appointees to the policy waste committee, or solid waste policy committee should be Hamilton County residents, or preferably Hamilton County residents, let's say. But applicants from other localities will be considered, if a Hamilton County resident, a suitable Hamilton County resident can't be found. Like way too worried I need to do it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's our policy. Thank you. Thank you all. All right.
I'm sorry, can I get a clarification? The solid waste district boundaries actually go outside, just.
Why would you say that?
Yeah, that little bit of Milford and that little bit of.
I am of the opinion that Hamilton County is a very large place, and from my experience, and albeit shorter than yours, has been that people are interested in serving these positions. And so I'm hopeful that that continues, and then we have applicants from Hamilton County that are qualified to sit on the board. So we'll cross the bridge when we get to it, I think, hopefully we don't need to. All right, next item is the waste generator representative position. I was not on this committee. Michelle, you want to frame it, and then we'll turn it over to a representative that was on the committee?
Yes, so we did have 6 applicants for the waste generator representative. This, and I did put the words in the manager's memo, but the Ohio Revised Code says that 1 member representing industrial, commercial, or institutional generators of solid waste within the district be appointed. So this member has historically been someone who represents the business side of things, the large waste generators this represents. Only the 4 statutory members can vote on it. However, we did have a committee more, outside of that. So we had Colleen, Sue, and Tony all served on the committee. They chose 2 of the 6 applicants to interview virtually. And I will let the 3 of them give their impressions of those interviews.
Great.
First, go ahead. Okay. Okay, well, so we talked with both candidates. We interviewed Mallory, who we also interviewed a couple years ago. At the time of the vote, we were impressed with Mallory, but it was thought that she didn't have really enough experience. But now she has a couple more years' experience. She is the net zero project manager at the Cincinnati Zoo. She's definitely a generator from an institutional perspective. She's also a generator from a public events perspective. She's a generator from a retail waste perspective because of the gift shops and all the different facets that the zoo has. And she also worked at Ohio State, where she was a zero waste assistant. So she has experience with two very large institutions. And so I was really impressed with her knowledge and experience regarding aerobic digestion, composting, recycling. And so I felt that she was and she's a resident of Hamilton County. So I would like to nominate Mallory. The other person that we interviewed is not a resident of Hamilton County. So I could go into that more, but.
Yeah, and the other person we interviewed, her background was more in household hazardous waste, or not even household hazardous waste, but hazardous waste from an industrial standpoint and not really the solid waste part of it. And when we asked her sort of what do you know about the solid waste policy for Hamilton County, she basically said nothing. That she was not knowledgeable in that area. So we kind of thought that Mallory made more sense. She's a Hamilton County resident. The zoo, kind of like Sue said, I mean, they take care of, you know, organics, they take care of all the retail stuff, they take care of all the event stuff. And it just seems like Mallory has more of a background on how to potentially help with some of the issues instead of sort of learning what the issues are to be able to help in the future.
Yeah, so you've made your case for Mallory, and my preference is for Chelsea. She's in the private sector. It's not one that's where she has her experience. She worked previously worked for a firm dealing with industrial waste. It wasn't all hazardous waste. So they were helping their clients decide how do we handle this waste? How do we dispose of it? Can it be recycled? Is it even hazardous or not on it? So that's where her experience is. Currently, she works for General Electric, as they had said. So she deals with their waste generating that side of industrial waste there. And the other thing is that yes, she is not free where she lives. She lives in Kentucky on it. That was always a uncertain factor, I guess, in her application. I think she's had to make some hard decisions, as she explained it to us in dealing with clients about where should this waste go, even to the point of telling a client that no, we can't do it the way you want to do it. It has to be done a different way. So she had the conviction that to walk around your client to go above firm can say this is not the appropriate way to do it. Where is to do it. So I was pretty impressed with that. And in all these instances, she had to weigh, how do you dispose of this? How much is it going to cost? How we best handle it? Where we would go with it. So I like the fact that she has experience in the private sector, and most of the industrial, commercial, and institutional waste you see is going to be mostly industrial and commercial waste. So I just thought that she had a different perspective on the university, I guess.
Remind us, Michelle, how long are the terms?
2 years.
2 years.
Typically, people serve at least two-year terms, but they're by revised codes.
Are there term limits?
2 years.
No term limits. Reminds me of how long Todd served on this committee.
It's because it pays so well.
It's the benefits for it.
Yeah.
To the benefits, the
Uh-huh.
tours that we get to go.
Yeah.
So, all right, would the other members care to weigh in?
I trust you all's judgment. Since I'm on the vote, I think, wherever we land on where they live at. Like the fact that Tony's recommending somebody, because I assume he's probably recommending his replacement, so I know we're gonna get somebody good, but.
The only thing I'll add is that I had the privilege of interviewing with Sue 3 years ago, Mallory, and at that time, it was a tough decision. I ultimately went a different direction, but it wasn't because I didn't like Mallory or qualifications. And Cincinnati Zoo has certainly been a big partner in the region with the health district and solid waste district as well.
I think both candidates are outstanding. The one thing that I look for is, somebody that, can look around the corner, and be predictive in what's gonna happen. And I think some of the future of this, of solid waste is industrial and hazardous more so than it is now. And I like the idea that Chelsea has that experience and is on the ground floor, one of the biggest innovators in that type of solid waste. I kind of underline your shipping requirements for hazardous waste and materials. I mean, my mind goes back to East Palestine, and that this gives us someone that understands that battleground probably as well as anyone. On the other hand, the zoo is a good solid waste producer. It certainly fits the definition. And I know that last time as well, I was impressed with Mallory. We were on that call together, and it was a very difficult decision, as it is now. So I guess based upon the position that's being filled, I lean more towards private sector and more towards the idea of looking around the corner to the future as to what's going to happen and what we're going to face, so that we can be in front of those problems when they do occur. So that's where I'm at, but I think we can't go wrong with either candidate.
Okay.
And another benefit of Mallory is that she's already very well integrated into the Green Business Council. And so, and to the business community. So she will be able to help get the word out, and she will be able to help us make better connections with the business community, where Chelsea really just didn't have any contacts yet.
She's a little bit.
She's silent where she's at. She's been there not quite a year. And she's a chemist, but you're absolutely right. She's, she would understand East Palestine stuff because she's her chemistry background.
And I kind of wonder, just sort of from what you've said about previous interviews with Mallory, it sounds kind of like Chelsea, sort of where Mallory was 2-3 years ago. And I feel like Mallory is better able to fit that position right now. Chelsea might be down the line.
Which is one of the reasons I asked about the length of the term, because I am sensitive to the idea that we want to have balance on the board.
Yeah.
Related to the private sector. And we're moving into a direction that we would not have as much balance. However, she lives in Kentucky, and we just had a conversation about this. So I am to say that because we're preferential, I am preferential to people that live in Hamilton County. I'm leaning towards the person that lives in Hamilton County as opposed to the person that lives in Kentucky. But I do think this board, I just want to say it out loud, has to be sensitive to the idea that the private sector is an important part of what we do. Important partners from the private sector are always in the room as we make decisions and have conversations. So I do want to be sensitive to that. So I mean, this board ebbs and flows. And so I personally think that it's important that so I will be looking in the future as we continue to move through. If someone is unable or doesn't desire to continue to serve, that we start to think through some of those balance conversations as we do this work together. So with that, we need a motion
I will make a motion. I nominate Mallory Gersey, is that her last name? For the institutional waste generator.
In second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye, the four of us.
Yeah, it was like. All those.
Yeah, just
Oh,
four.
I'm sorry. Susan, you are.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote no because, I prefer the other candidate, not because I don't like Mallory.
Understood.
Yeah.
Nothing personal.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, so your vote was?
Yes.
Aye, and I'm aye. Okay, so
Yeah, aye.
majority, thank you though for your input. Thank you for your.
no, thank you.
your input on this. All right. Let's move on to the next item. The next is the general interest representative position. So we're doing a lot of this. together.
2 years go by fast.
So Dom, evidently, you're up in August. So Michelle, per the ORC, we are doing an application process, because we have to. So Dom, I don't need to put you on the spot, but, you want to continue to serve? Very good. All right, so do we have to have a committee that, okay, we have to have applicants and review, okay? So we will do that. Who is, that we need a committee then? Who wants to serve on the committee?
I'm also willing to step back if you guys want.
I mean, this is gonna be, I'm out in a week, so I have a heck of a lot more time.
All right, so we've got Sue, Matt, and Colleen on that committee. Thank you, and we'll go out for applications and figure that one out too.
Great.
It's not been 2 years. I think we made a mistake.
Yeah, that seems like it's working.
It's because we had so much fun.
Yeah. First year.
All right, so the next item is the 2024 impact grant, attachment C.
So I will briefly go over this and then hand it off to Sharon Moran, who has been the master overseer of this whole application process. If you remember last year, you approved allocating $500,000 from the carryover into our budget to fund up to $100,000 for a competitive grant process for waste reduction. We went through a very long, we extended the time that the applications were out. Cher was very generous with her time in offering consultations with people who had ideas or sent her applications to review. And I think because of that, we did get some really good applications that were very fundable. So we have those recommendations. The committee consisted of people from outside of our office as well. People, we had some from Hamilton County Public Health, we had some from the Northern Solid Waste District in Northern Ohio. It was a lot of reviewing. So kudos to Sherry because she did even more than I did. So, I do want to say there's some unspent funds. And we are already with the other grant, the smaller grant, the innovation grant, we're already at past our budget of how much we budgeted for that, which was $100,000. So we'll be able to add that money from this into that fund. So it won't go wasted, unintended. It will go to the innovation grant. So with that, I will hand it over to Sharon.
So you have them in front of you, but just kind of go over Church is Active in Northside. We had supplied a grant for them to get a walk-in refrigerator several years ago. They would like to convert that into a freezer and then also buy an additional refrigerator. Their hope is that when things get rejected from the grocery stores, like whole shipments of things, that they could kind of a hub for that to go and then redistribute to other pantries potentially. But at any rate, they do serve a lot of people, so they do have the clientele needed to redistribute surplus food. Isaiah 55 is they are they requested funds for a refrigerator to drive around and redistribute food, also for a refrigerator, and then some different kitchen materials to both do their own food preservation for surplus food, and also teach other people how to do it. Ohio Valley Goodwill, is, they need a lift. Take the unusable textiles, probably mostly clothing, stuff that isn't sellable in the store. They need to bale it in order to sell it to recyclers, so this is a hydraulic lift that will lift it up into the baler. So Valley is, they're a nonprofit organization that they do a lot of mentoring with the new business owners. But basically what they have are like sewing machines and everything, so people can design and make their own clothing and things like that. They've been working really hard for a long time to get to zero waste, and their scrap fabric has been a barrier to that. So they've actually come to us for grants before on things, like as far as like shipping at places, but this grant would actually keep that material here locally. They would also work with other businesses that have scrap fabric, shred it and then make it in. So the shredded fabric could either be used for fiber fill, for insulation, but they're also going to have a machine that can like press it into like board type of material to use as bulletin boards or soundproofing in areas. So it's kind of a market development type of a thing as well. The University of Cincinnati College of Medicine, they get a ton of styrofoam coolers. So they are piloting two kind of separate programs at two of their buildings to recycle the styrofoam coolers. So they have a little bit of a different system at the two different buildings. Kind of see how those work, and the thought is then they'll be able to expand it to other buildings when they figure out, you know, what would be the best process for other buildings. Amberley Village, they need a new leaf vacuum. And what they do is collect leaves at the curb from the residents, and they compost them in the village, and then they offer the composted leaves back to residents for their landscaping. And the village of Woodlawn needs a chipper to chip the woody material from residents. And then I believe they are sending it to a mulch company, but it is not getting landfill. I don't believe they are composting it themselves, but it is getting diverted. Those are receiving grants.
Can you talk about the ones
Are
that
recommended?
aren't?
Please.
Can you speak to the ones that aren't?
So there was the Corporation for Finley Market. They requested funding for 2 gators. They're like utility built, golf cart type things, to go around and collect waste and recycling, and for new recycling and garbage containers throughout the inside and outside market. Well, just the recycling for the outside part, but their combination waste for the inside part. And buckets for their residential composting. Food for the Soul requested funds to do some kitchen upgrades. To, I believe it was to process surplus rescue food. Last Mile Food Rescue, they requested funds for a refrigerated van and the salary of a program project manager. Ohio State University Extension requested funds to purchase composting supplies, and dehydrators and canning supplies to give classes to people on food preservation and composting. That included actually giving the people that they were giving classes to the dehydrating machines. Voice of our customer, it was for a marketing campaign to market waste or recycling to the community. But I can answer any questions.
Yeah, I had just a quick question on the College of Medicine, so. So obviously they can't reuse those. They have to, but they can't potentially recycle.
They did mention that they were, like, one of their staff members was working with, I believe, cat rescue. So they were taking some of them to make like, feral cat homes out of them, but it was more than they could, I mean, like more than they could handle.
And there's only the big ones where you
Yeah.
want to get the research about the size.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to work in a medical office. I had a garage full of those folders. And I was just at a pediatric office because I couldn't, I mean, there's so many of them, like every day you get several folders every day.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad that they want to do it because Children's needs it too, because
All the-
all the hospitals.
All the
need it with
hospitals
their
have been
refrigerated-
talking, and that was one of the things we discussed, because all of the hospitals have been struggling with styrofoam.
And they're all really close, so maybe they could figure out something.
So one question I had for
Sure.
Lauren, so and this is full disclosure, so they actually talked to us, kind of see what capabilities were, are they still going with the wrapper for the styrofoam? Because it was something where when they kind of priced it out, they wanted a wrapper, basically they were gonna put everything kind of on a pallet, wrap it with stretch wrap. And we kind of said, just get the bins like we've got in the bags that can be reused.
Yeah.
Cause it just seemed like it was a lot of expense and they could have done it maybe a little bit more physically as possible.
So there was two different systems at the two different locations. And one of them was the wrapping it, and I remember they specifically said that they needed to shrink wrap it on the pallets for the styrofoam recycler. Please,
Eco development.
yeah, eco development, that they wanted it that way to hold it in place. I'm
Well,
not,
and that's the thing, like eco development will take it as long as it's in your bag, it doesn't necessarily need to be wrapped. Because our biggest issue when we were talking to them about it, I said, hey, you're saving all the styrofoam, but then you're using a lot of shrink wrap.
It's wasteful, yeah, it's kind of a weird.
And it just, it seems more expensive that way, because again, you can't reuse that.
and I think, so a lot of the stuff kind of has to be handled by facilities, and I know a lot of the input that they got was from facilities on how they wanted to do it as well. That was the plan that they came up with, was to shrink wrap it.
It was something where like they talked to us about it. Just make that recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, I can make a note to.
Yeah, if we could just urge them to like, see if they can. Pilot some other
Solve one
options.
problem, but then cause another
Yeah.
one.
Exactly, yeah, and then where's the shrink wrap gonna go? You know?
I mean, that can, but if it doesn't have to, that's all better. And then, my other question too was for Lance Smile, it looked like, I think it was 1.9 tons were listed as being rescued, and I wonder if that was going to be like 1.9 billion tons or something, because it just seems like that would be very small for the amount, for what they would have.
So that would be about what would be additionally.
Okay.
And I think that was kind of like, so they actually put like 4 million pounds, I believe it was.
It's high.
Yeah, and when we went back through and like tried to actually figure out how much this part of the program might divert, it was probably more like that amount. So, yeah, a lot of the proposals came.
1.9 billion, though, but it was just-
So I think it's 1 point,
1.9 tons would be a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
No, well, no, I was wondering if it was supposed to be more like 1.9 million. Yeah, 1.9 is nothing, because that's not even 4,000 pounds. So,
I just said two other things. One, the Amberley program, that they have been doing that for like 30 years and doing it without any violations. It's a small operation, so that's probably what we're, we just had one other commission was the Village of Woodlawn, was that, it was a chipper, is there? Should I say this? Are there any agreements among the smaller villages and cities to share equipment like that?
I do not know.
So that's something we've been working on. We actually.
That's all you need, that's all. You need.
There's some communities such as Gulf Manor, right next to Amberley.
Right.
They struggle with a place to bring their equipment. Amberley has the Gold Star beautiful compost facility. So we have been really working on trying to get partnerships. Yes.
That's it.
Real quick, I'm just curious, a couple of the ones that aren't getting funded, it's pretty clear they didn't know how much waste or how many people serve, but a couple of them are pretty well baked, serving 100 tons per year and 1,200 people. And I'm just curious, is there any more detail why they weren't recommended? Is it that efficiency in application or something else?
Mostly. Finley Market, the major reason was that it seemed excessive that they needed 2 gators where they never had any to just collect waste and recycling. And when I discussed that with, because I contacted all of these people and have offered to give them feedback. When I discussed that with them, they said that the reason that they wanted 2 was in case one of them was broke down. So they could have a backup. So they do, it does sound like they do intend on reapplying for one of our innovation grants, but for 1 gator instead of 2. So we're hoping that we can still help them in that way. Food for the Soul, the budget just didn't make sense and they didn't provide any, it didn't. So that like one of the budget items was $55,000 to take out a wall, and they had no quotes on anything that they were doing. They just had it written in the budget, like remove wall, $55,000. So it was really difficult to understand why that would be. Last mile food rescue. One of the big things is that both of the budget items that they had listed were going to be more than the amount they were requesting, but they had no plan for how they were going to make up the cost. They also had no plan for how they would be sustainable, how they could continue the program after, after the grant funding ran out. Ohio State University Extension, they did not include quotes, pictures, any kind of information on the types of things that they wanted to buy. They also asked for things like, for the composting, they planned on buying soil, which really made us, question if they knew what they were teaching kind of thing. And what, also the composting they were going to do was worm bin composting. So they were going to, I guess they wanted to buy worms for the composting, but they didn't talk about like the bin or anything that they put it in. And worm bins are kind of a specialized thing. They're not, it's a little bit of a different situation. What's the voice of your customer? I think, well, for one thing, they didn't have any quotes either. So we had really no way of figuring out how they came up with the amounts. Also, this grant really just did not fit in well with what they wanted to do. Like we did not allow entertainment or food, and they had those kinds of things in the grant proposal. So a lot of the stuff that, and only like 50% of it could be food or for salary, and they had most of it was for salary. So I think that mostly just wasn't a good fit.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So but to the point, so if I've done the math correctly, of the 500,000 that has been set aside, 423 or so is
Mhm.
being used.
Yes.
Through the recommendations. So if we've got an application, and maybe we're not allowed to do this, but if we've got an application, say Finley Market, where, you know, the idea of purchasing one gator makes sense, 2 gators was too much, and they're gonna come back and ask for funding through another grant for the 1 gator. Are we able to parse that out and say, you know, we've got 75,000 left in the pot here. I think, can we parse out that 1 gator and say, hey, we'd be willing to fund this in part because this is what fits our mission and the rest of it, we're not willing to fund?
We did that
Have you
last
ever
time.
partial
We
grant?
had a little bit left over and we went to the next person on the rating and said, this is how much we have. We can do the project.
Yeah, it was almost the amount that they request, it was like, you know, like 2,000 less than what they had requested, and we asked if they could still do it. They said they
So
could.
we've done partial before. Does that not make sense in this case? I mean, I'm just asking.
So you're saying fund the.
Well, from
out
what you
the.
said, there's some merit to what, I'm just using it for instance, what Finley Market has suggested, there's some merit in getting the gator. It may be the containers as well. But the idea was that 2 is unnecessary. And so maybe the idea would be, well, let's fund 1. And say, we're not willing to do it for 2, we'll go for 1 and the containers, if that makes sense. And if that fits with conversations we had at the panel. It sounds like some of these other ones were disqualified for different reasons, but Finley was disqualified because you didn't think it was appropriate to fund 2 gators. And I feel like there's a little bit of difference there. And they're next on the list too. So I'm just wondering if a partial grant is possible in this case.
Yeah, they could resubmit their budget with that, with the other gator off.
And then if they did, well, let me just, if they did that, if they had offered something with 1 gator instead of 2, would you have accepted this as part of the ones that were funded?
Well, I'm not the whole committee. Yeah, so there was 5 people, so I can't speak for everyone else. I know another concern was that they were replacing some recycling bins they already had with new ones. But other than that, the only, so and maybe I'm just being a stickler. The thing that I run into is that we have a deadline for people to submit grant proposals. And so if we allow people to like resubmit grant proposals, it kind of goes beyond that deadline. I don't know if that's fair to the other people who could have been resubmitted, you know.
Submitted on time, we just don't want to accept. I'm just offering this, if we've done partials before, I'm just offering the idea of a partial. We didn't use all the money, it was intended to divert, right? So I'm just trying to get closer to the 500.
It was also a very low diversion rate that they were going
Okay, so
to do as well. I mean, there were other factors. The big thing was it seemed like 2 gators were excessive, but I know there were other.
And it also seems like they don't have anyone on staff. We have to pay somebody to manage the grant versus them doing it. I thought that's a little excessive. Also I wouldn't agree to us doing the garbage receptacles. I think they have to pay for the garbage receptacles or at least match.
So so there was a time when we said.
Yeah, I know, that's what, like, there hasn't been a debate with the review
so there-
committee
there-
on a lot of these line items they wanted, yeah. So I see, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't.
So if
I'm not.
they applied just for the gator, would it be under 15,000 for the ratio?
The gator was, I believe, $20,000 each, and so that with the 25% match, it would be just right.
So Michelle, remind us, for the unused funds here, where would you like those to go?
For the innovation grant, it's in our budgeting process, it's in the same line item, so it's already all combined into one code for us, so there's really no, it's already in there basically, so we would just use it for to fund the innovation grant for the rest of the year.
It is, how are we doing with the innovation grant?
I think we just spent about 99,000. Yeah, which is, you know, it's $100,000 budget. Now we have other line items that we can pull from to continue funding projects. We're not
But
relying
you
on this.
feel like you'll be oversubscribed in that one?
I think that we will spend the rest of those.
We
funds
have
for the
two, we
Innovation
have
Grant
two
for the
more
rest of the year.
proposals we are still waiting
Okay,
to meet on.
so it'll be used for
And not-
diversion one way or the other. Okay, all right, I was just curious, I just, given this description, I was like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we should do this. Okay, all right, any other questions, conversation?
I just thought it was good, the diversity of the materials. I was happy to see a couple hitting textiles, a couple hitting the food waste, one hitting, yard waste, one hitting polystyrene. So I'm glad that the committee had a variety of materials. The only one on the Goodwill, although I know they need it and they've had this, the baler for a while is, I know that people often, the rule followers refrain from taking that stuff to them, the things that might have a stain or a rip or a missing button. And this is for the stains and the missing button. And so I would like to see them tell people that they accept that if we're gonna buy this equipment. And I don't think I would wanna give them this money if they don't tell people they will accept those materials.
And just from a help standpoint, we don't know of any other place that will take them, but it's really hard because we basically say, if you have these kind of materials, we have to check with your specific Google that you're going to, whether they will accept them or not.
Yeah. But this should allow them to be able to accept it. I would just like to get that verification.
So what we've been told is that they do accept those things,
Okay.
but when we, from the people higher up in Goodwill, but when we individually call a Goodwill and ask them, sometimes that person doesn't know and says, no, we don't want that. And so I think there is and I haven't done this in years, but I know that that has been my experience. And that was one of the things that the grant review committee did discuss, that, maybe this could bring more,
Oh, yeah.
but, make it more valid that validity that they do take damaged fabrics.
Well, and one of the things that we found, some of the local Goodwills is, so they're kind of hesitant to take the stuff that's stained and torn and things. They have to look through that to sort of see what the good stuff is. So we find that if there's a Goodwill that will take it and basically say, put it in a bag, mark it as
Crap.
resellable textiles, so they know they don't put it that.
And I've done that before, like with my own things. I've said, this is not resellable, this is recyclable, and they've kind of been like, oh, okay. And, but I don't know I'm just going with my personal experience.
Do we need a motion to approve the lead recommendations?
Yes.
All right. With no further discussion, I'm gonna accept a motion to approve.
I will make a motion to approve the staff recommendations, and when they notice the award for Goodwill, that they make a request that they increase awareness of this.
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Who was at that second?
I did.
Thanks for putting that point. It's one of those things I've been trying to get on the tip. This gives us the language.
Okay, so that was item 5D, correct? So, and I just do want to say that as I continue to move around all the jurisdictions in Hamilton County, almost every single one is taking advantage of the recycling grant that we have put forward. I mean, it's really amazing. It's the one consistent thing that every community is doing. And it's phenomenal that you have had that kind of impact and done that outreach in those communities. And they're tiny, some of them, and some of them can't use it anymore. And they've contacted your office and said, people are throwing trash in there. We can't do it anymore. We're getting fees are being levied against us. And you're like, well, let's figure out another way to do this. So I just kudos to you.
Yeah. And I think it is key having it rolling where there's not a deadline, because when you have the idea and you got the people, you can't wait till the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's becoming successful. So, good.
All right, so let's go to informational items, organics facility or feasibility studies update.
So I just wanted to give a quick update on this. We'll have a full PowerPoint presentation because hopefully the study will have some good conclusions by August in the next meeting. But I did want to let you know kind of where we're at in the process with the organics processing feasibility study. GT Environmental is leading that up. There is a webpage. If you go under our website, under About Us, we have some of the documents on there. We've had two sessions, one with two stakeholder visioning sessions, one with solid waste management districts in the region. And then the second was a kind of broader virtual session with stakeholders, communities, composters, basically anyone who's interested, get on and give feedback. Both were really great. We do have some documents on, and I actually passed out one of them on the website, kind of giving an overview of the impact or the input that we received during those. So right now, phase one is nearly complete. The last part that's in process is the landscape and planning analysis, which is reaching out to current composters and wannabe composters and all kinds of different organics processors and getting their input. Nora Goldstein, who's the editor of Biocycle, is putting together 6 case studies. And those, I just got the draft of one of them that she said that most of them are already drafted and she's going to be sending my way after I gave her the input this week. Those are going to be how communities interact with the study. So, if you're Woodlawn and you want, there's going to be a facility, well, what can I do? This will, be a way that you can do that. So you could have a scrap drop off. You could offer curbside. Here's the different options. Here's some real world examples, how much it costs, that kind of information. And so they also did an analysis of the processing needs. And so how much organic waste is Hamilton County creating? How much is the region creating? How much of that could we actually divert? So you can't say for sure, if we're creating 30 million tons that we're going to divert 100% of that. It's just not realistic. So how much would actually get diverted? So they've done that analysis and created some models. And the last piece of that modeling is they're doing some real world audits. So they're going to a few facilities that create a lot of organics and actually talking to them about that diversion. So they're already working a little bit. The phases don't, it's not linear. They're actually working a little bit in phase 2 already, but looking at different facilities and different technologies that might be feasible. So that will wrap up the end of June, and then that will be on to phase 3. So the way that it's leaning, it seems like most of the input that we've gotten and the analysis they've been doing has been leading to not one big central compost facility, for example, having more decentralized, more smaller facilities that would be easier to access from different locations. So it's been an interesting process so far, and I'm happy to talk your ear off about it if you want to give me a call, but I just wanted to kind of give that update on where we're at right now. There will be a much more in-depth update in August.
Do you have any update on the anaerobic digester in St. Bernard or the one that's proposed in Harrison?
So I actually did reach out to Sam Schutte with Synthica, who's doing the one in St. Bernard, and didn't hear back from him.
Okay.
So I know that they broke ground.
Yep.
And I know that I saw advertisements for them hiring in Cincinnati.
Okay.
That's the best I can do for an update on that. And then the Divert, who's doing the kind of grocery store anaerobic digestion in Harrison Township. I know they had a public meeting to get input on that from people out in Harrison. And so I attended that. It was a virtual, well, it was half virtual, half in person. I don't know where they're at as far as actually building a facility, but I think they're closer. I mean, I think they're pretty close.
That's great.
We've got a
Thanks.
press release going out about it, so they're getting that.
Nice. Yeah, and I think the Synthica one was supposed to be able, they broke ground like almost last summer when they met with us, but then I would think that they'd be starting to receive in the next few months. That's why I'm surprised that he didn't get back.
I think the breaking ground was delayed a little bit, and because it took them more than 18 months, I think they had to reapply for permits because they hadn't broken ground, but they did break ground.
Okay, gotcha.
They got their permits, so I think they had a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I know from Sam too, that there were parts that they were expecting bidding for something like COVID, that whole backlog. kind of screwed up the whole time.
Okay, thanks for the update. Right, and then the waste reduction innovation grants updates.
So that's the last attachment, and it just kind of gives you an overview of two, innovation grants, that were funded. One was for the Center for Addiction Treatment. They're doing a lot of of waste reduction, which isn't something we get a lot. We get a lot of recycling and, even more food rescue now, but, they've got a facility where they have people who come in during the day, then they also have a lot of residents there. And so they're doing, installing hand dryers, doing water bottle refill stations, a lot of reusables, that they're installing there. They reach a lot of people, at their facility. And then, Delhi, if you read anything, they're doing some pretty exciting stuff there as far as development. And they're including, recycling in that, development. And so these are just funding recycling containers. Unfortunately, we didn't fund the St. Joseph, but Cher's been working with them on the application. It just didn't fit. It wasn't really a waste diversion project. So, but we partner with them in other ways. We'll continue working.
Do you need a motion to approve of these?
No,
No?
No, they're small.
they're under 15,000.
Okay, very good. All right, anything else before we get to the announcements for the upcoming meeting? Sure thing.
Michelle, you and your staff consistently over the years, you guys have done a great job, like, through the ups and downs of COVID and everything else. So just want to do it. Time the staff puts in. I know it's not always easy, particularly these applications are one thing that take a lot of time, a lot of thought, a lot of interaction, which is good. But yeah, if you could pass it on to your staff. Thank you. They're not all here today, but greatly appreciate it.
Good constituent.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, the next meeting of the committee is Wednesday, August 14th at 3, back at our, oh no, are we? So when? Okay, sorry, Greg's got a new space. I was hoping we'd go there, but since we're gonna be slumming it over at Williamtown. No problem, no problem. Maybe we'll get to the new facilities.
You're welcome.
2025.
It's nice. And it's got a big meeting room similar to this one. All right, well, we'll discuss that at the next meeting if the women have a careful patient. All right, we are going on a tour, am I right?
Yeah, it's not even raining.
I know, it's kind of weird. All right, so I'll accept a motion to adjourn to the gardens.
I will second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.